I had to do my snow and my neighbor's snow.
Right.
All right. That one? We all set? No, because I would not be able to
He was like, don't take my glasses.
to see. Hopefully they'll go down.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
It's contacts, but
Well,
really How are you? Nice to see you. Good to see you too. You're on the left.
all set? All right. Good morning and welcome. We are fortunate to be here today with the EPA Administrator Michael Regan to talk about the innovative ways we are using American Rescue Plan Act funds for climate resiliency and to address other needs here in Detroit. And let me just say that whether we're using ARPA dollars, whether we're using the BIL, the bipartisan infrastructure law dollars, or whether we're using Build Back Better dollars, I can assure you that the mayor is going to be pounding on all of the department heads to be good stewards of that money and to be accountable for it. And so with that said, my boss does not need any formal introduction in the city of Detroit. He is our mayor, and I'll introduce the Honorable Mayor Mike Duggan.
Well, thank you, Gary, and I just want to welcome EPA Administrator Michael Regan back to town. We're glad to see him being such a regular visitor. 15 or 20 years ago, the job of the EPA Administrator was almost entirely dealing with human-made pollution, whether it was contamination in the soil, the air, the water. What we have today in the EPA Administrator is one of the country's experts in climate change. And we got a chance to hear stories with the Dickerson family and Ms. Owens, who you're going to hear from, about the very human way people are being hurt by climate change. We got 3,000 miles of storm drain in this city that were built in the last century, and they were built to what we knew, that if you got above 2 inches of rain in 24 hours, you'd start to overflow into the river, but that was unusual. If you got to over 4 inches of rain, it would start to back up in basements, but that was a once-in-a-100-year event. Last June, we were over 6 inches of rain, and none of us has any confidence that with climate change, that's not going to happen again. And we just can't keep talking to folks like Ms. Owens about, I'm really sorry, the climate changed. We have to solve it. We can't tear out 3,000 miles of storm drain in the city, but what we can do is take the 11 neighborhoods in the low-lying areas and go directly in and help those folks harden their basements, protect them against the flood. That's something we can do in the next couple of years to protect for the long run. And so we've opened up the application process thanks to the help of the Biden administration and the American Rescue Plan Act. We'll have $15 million. We're starting in this neighborhood, an aviation sub on the west side, and another neighborhood on the east side that were the hardest hit and are usually the hardest hit by the rainstorms. And then when we work out the bugs in doing the first ones, because we've never tried this. The city is going to contract, so the homeowner doesn't have to deal with contractors. And we heard a story today about the difficulty of a homeowner dealing with a plumbing contractor when they don't have that experience. The city's going to enter into the contracts. We're going to supervise the work. We'll pay 90% of the work. For people of low income, we'll pay 100% of the work. We will have contracts up to city council in the next week or two, and we hope to be in these basements, including Ms. Owen's basement, by May. And I'm glad my partner, Fred Durhal, is here because he has promised expeditious review by City Council. And so, Ms. Owens, I just want to say thank you for opening your home to us today and help us coming. And with that, I'll turn it back to Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I give you the bio of our distinguished guest, let me just thank him for allowing me to have a seat on a committee that's called the Local Government Advisory Committee. And this committee is made up of very diverse individuals from around the country, about 35 of us. And while I've been on this committee, I've been so impressed with just the sheer number of diversity that he has in his cabinet at the highest level, along with the diversity that is on the committee. And I can tell you that I've sat on a lot of panels and advisory committees in the water industry, and you just don't normally see the type of diversity that is in the utility industry that's on his cabinet. So I want to thank him for the opportunity to be able to give advice with regards to what the locals are seeing and how the money should be spent. And I know that it's not going to fall on deaf ears. With that said, Michael S. Regan, Administrator, Environmental Protection Agency, EPA. Michael S. Regan was sworn in as the 16th Administrator of the United States Environmental Protection Agency on March 11th, 2021. Becoming the first black man and second person of color to lead the U.S. EPA. Prior to his nomination as EPA Administrator, Michael Regan served as the Secretary of the North Carolina Department of Environmental Control, DEQ. Administrator Regan is a native of Goldsboro, North Carolina, where he developed a passion for environment while hunting and fishing with his father and grandfather and exploring the vast lands, water, and intercoastal plain of North Carolina. As the son of two public servants, his mother, a nurse for nearly 30 years, and his father, a retired colonel with the North Carolina National Guard, Vietnam veteran, and former agriculture extension agent. Michael Regan went on to follow in his parents' footsteps and pursue a life of public service. I give you Michael Regan.
Well, I want to thank Gary, not only for that very kind introduction, but for his service on the LGAC, the Local Governments Advisory Council. Contrary to popular belief, I don't believe all the answers come from Washington, D.C. They come from our local governments and our communities, and Gary represents that to the fullest. So thank you, Gary. Thank you, Mayor Duggan, again, for your leadership and for welcoming me to the city of Detroit. Last year we met about this time on this very topic, and it's exciting to be here again, not because of the issue, but because of the leadership and the partnership that's here in the room with me. Pastor Pam, thank you for opening your doors of the church today and for being a leader in the community. I know that you've also been dealing with flooding firsthand, and so we greatly appreciate your leadership while you're also experiencing some of the trauma that many of your flock are as well. Congresswoman Tlaib, it's great to be with you again in your district. The Congresswoman represents you all extremely well. I cannot imagine anyone fighting any harder for the people that they serve than Congresswoman Tlaib. The last time I was here, about a year ago with you all had just experienced a so-called 1,000-year flood, a flood unlike anything that the city had ever seen. And today, as I visited with Mrs. Owens and the Dickersons, I understand that the community is still reeling from the impacts from the last time I was here, And I have to tell you, it's heart-wrenching to go down into the basements and look at families who are dealing with boxed up items that have been soiled and damaged by wastewater. Trophies from when their children earned them when they were in elementary school, or certificates that they continue to covet, or hearing the heartbreaking story of the Dickersons who lost their turn in the rotation to host Christmas dinner because their house wasn't suitable this past year. I remember speaking last year to one resident, a mother whose basement had flooded with wastewater, and she asked me to imagine trying to keep your children safe and salvage family heirlooms at the same time while waste and wastewater is permeating through your basement. That was a vivid explanation for me because I have an 8-year-old son, and I can exactly understand what she's talking about. So it's hard to imagine, yet we're all here, and we know that the climate crisis is making flooding worse and more common and more severe. Flooding is a major challenge in all of our communities throughout the United States. Nationwide, heavy precipitation has increased by 40% in the past 5 decades. That's astounding. That's why we need services like Detroit's Basement Backup Protection Program to assist residential homeowners in protecting their property before and during storm events. And thanks to the leadership of President Biden, Congresswoman Tlaib, and her colleagues in Congress, the city's $15 million program is being funded by the American Rescue Plan. These are infrastructure dollars hard at work, helping communities like Detroit invest in programs that make a real difference in people's lives. The program is putting people to work installing devices that prevent sewer backups to protect the health and safety of communities. And the mayor had it right. 50 years ago and even now, people think about the Environmental Protection Agency as protecting the environment. But we're a public health agency first and foremost, and we care about our people and the community. This program that the mayor and Gary are leading in Detroit demonstrates a systemic challenge to facing flooding in communities all across this country. Because of underinvestment in water infrastructure that is essential for healthy and thriving communities, we have too many families that are suffering from what Ms. Owens is suffering from. 30 years ago, the federal government's contribution was 63% of total capital spending. And now, that's about 9%. And yet the consequences of underinvesting in our water infrastructure has only grown more severe with climate change. Aging, crumbling, inadequate water infrastructure puts our communities at risk, puts our families at risk, put our children at risk. It compromises the health of our people, it threatens their security, and it keeps us stuck in the past, unable to meet the demands of a changing world. But under the bipartisan infrastructure law, under President Biden's leadership, that's going to change. We're making the single largest investment in U.S. water infrastructure in history. $50 billion, that's with the B, will flow through EPA's tried and true water infrastructure programs. Folks, we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to build a better America, to invest in systems that can handle the threat of the climate crisis while safeguarding our local waters and while creating local jobs. The law includes nearly $12 billion through EPA's Clean Water State Revolving Fund for wastewater and stormwater upgrades, exactly the type of investments we need for today's problems. And almost half of the bipartisan infrastructure law funding is available through grants and fully forgivable loans, without a match, without high interest rates, giving underserved communities a historic opportunity to finance urgently needed infrastructure projects. As part of this investment, Michigan, the state of Michigan, will receive $213 million of infrastructure investments for this year. That's just the first year of 5 years of investments, and there will be more to come over the coming 5 years. This initial investment coming to Michigan is expected to create over 3,300 jobs, growing the portfolio of construction work right here in this state. Jobs that will be born in Michigan, will stay in Michigan, and will not be outsourced anywhere else. Investing in water infrastructure is one of the best investments that we can make to protect people's health, to safeguard the environment, and to lay a very strong foundation for economic vitality. And we're going to make sure that the communities that need these resources the most are in line first. And that's exactly why we're here today, meeting with families like the Owens and the Dickersons and talking to the mayor, because we need to know that the families on the ground that need these resources will get them first. And we're going to make sure that they do. That's why I sent a letter to every governor in every state sharing detailed information about this administration's goals for states to target water infrastructure investments to underserved communities and communities that have not been at the table. So we'll continue to work very closely with the governor's office. We'll continue to work with our state officials. We'll continue to work with our local partners to ensure that these historic investments reach our most vulnerable communities. And thanks to the infusion of the bipartisan infrastructure law, thanks to the president's commitment, because leadership starts at the top, we're going to be investing in our water infrastructure in ways that this country has never seen before. We're going to create healthier communities, safer communities, and a more equitable future for all of our communities. So thank you all.
Thank you, Administrator Regan. Our next speaker, everybody in the room has always known that she's a tenacious advocate for the underserved. That goes without saying, but I don't know if she remembers this story, but when I was elected to Detroit City Council, I got the idea that I was going to go up to Lansing and pull the Detroit delegation together along with the City Council, and that we would come back and change the world if we just would work together. And I came back home and told my wife that there was this state representative that looked, she was very pregnant and looked like she was about ready to have this baby. He's 10 now. And I'm telling you, she was pounding on the table. I thought she was going to jump up on the table. And I just went over to Dutch Girl and got some donuts. I thought we were going to have just, a little coffee and conversation. And so without any further ado, let me bring Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib.
Thank you so much, Gary. I don't think I pounded on anything. It probably was just my voice. As the eldest of 14, I tend to have a robust kind of personality. So, but good morning to all of you. And I really want to take some really good moment to thank Pastor Pamela Dixon for opening up her church home and allowing us to all be here in the congregation of Holy Temple Church. Thank you. Thank you. I know it's not just that you are leading with faith, but you also are just leading with so much compassion and extension beyond this, the grounds of the church. So thank you so much. Welcome to 13 District Strong, Administrator Reagan. You are always welcome here. And I love that you're never afraid to walk in the streets, in the neighborhoods, in the community. You went on the toxic tour with many of my residents, came through our communities, some of the most vulnerable communities that have been impacted by what my residents lovingly say, permission to pollute. We got to get around that and say we have to make sure that people come first in public health. And I'm so glad that I hear you speaking in that tone consistently. So thank you so much. I promise you, though, that we do have sunny and dry days here sometimes, and these beautiful tree lines in our neighborhoods, especially Aviation Sub. So we are welcome back in the springtime, anytime. On a serious note, I am so glad to be here with all of you to talk about essential announcement, and so incredibly proud of our city that is going to help Aviation Sub and so many of our communities across the district. But I want you all to know I remember the floods hit and the images of house after house with essential items in the front lawns destroyed by the backup of the water. People don't realize also the odor that's left behind. My residents talk about that all the time, and they still can smell that stench, and sentimental items that I know Administrator Reagan talked about, but also their furnaces. They needed new furnaces, water heaters, people to come down and make sure that there's not going to be increase of mold in their homes, that it's cleaned properly and so forth. So it's just layers and layers of so many challenges for our communities that are already living check by check and trying to survive, and so many didn't have the insurance in place because of the high cost, and again, because this is, again, some of the most vulnerable communities. The program will provide vital relief, as you all know, for homeowners, and I'm super excited the American Rescue Plan is being done this. One thing about our mayor is he's very creative in how to use money. He knows that implementation matters. It is critical and it's important to me and to many of us because having funds and creating a program is great, but actually making sure that it hits the ground and hits the people that need it the most is so critical. So because implementation is so critical, the approach that the city is taking, and Minister Reagan, you should appreciate this, is really connecting folks to the contractors. That is so a huge big step for our residents that don't know who's licensed, who's not, who has been vetted. And so instead of getting reimbursed for work that is privately arranged, and we're going to be able to maximize effectiveness and ensuring more people are benefiting, and homes are going to be healthy, fully healthy and safe to live in. And again, it simplifies the process. So thank you so much, Mayor, for that. You all know I am for long-term big impact. I want to see more American Rescue Plans passed. The important thing to know is, you know, the long-term high-level view towards combating flood in our region, that it is coming. You have more of us, members of Congress like myself and others, that are looking at approaches and policy changes, structural changes that really impact how we can be able to address the climate crisis in our country. Extreme weather is only going to get worse. We already know that. We're sensing it. I want to give you a quick example and again put that human face and impact on why this is so important. Recently, my team, you have neighbor service centers all across my district, and one of our service centers worked with one of our residents in the 13th district who was impacted by floods last year in June, and unfortunately still had standing water in her basement, which ended up frozen over the severe weather, and her plumbing became non-functional. We worked with Wayne Metro Community Action Agency, one of the agencies that was able to, I know the city and others contract with and partner with, as well as CAM, a coordinated effort with a lot of our community-based organizations to get her emergency temporary housing, and expedited her FEMA appeal, which we were notified. I'm so excited. I feel like I win the lottery every time. But we got her $14,000 and $108, $14,108 to fix her basement, replace her furnace, mitigate her basement from future flooding. So I'm super excited about that. That's the kind of stories I'm hoping to hear about this program. And I know we'll hear, again, just a tremendous impact that American Rescue Plan dollars can have. While we're able to help this resident, I know her stories, unfortunately, all very common across my district. I still have residents, many of my seniors, that still refuse to go in their basements because they know they're going to find other challenges and just don't have the capacity nor the know-all or the income to be able to address it. So I'm looking forward to this. On the top of all of this, I want you all to know, in the bipartisan, we created a bipartisan Get Out the Lead caucus. I led that with Rep. Meyer. Want to talk to the EPA and our EGLE director about this. But we need $1.65 billion to remove every single lead-contaminated pipeline across our state. And this is something that I know the city, the mayor, everybody is talking about more and more. We have to get it fully funded to remove every single ounce of lead. We can't build back better if we're poisoning our children. And so I know that we're going to work hard. Governor and I talk consistently about this issue. It's not just Benton Harbor. It's communities not only in Detroit or Hamtramck, it's also Garden City. We're hearing it all across my district. And so I'm really excited about moving with the partnership of the EPA Region 5, as well as our director here and others, to making sure that we are not going to stop at just the 25% of funding that is needed, that was funded with the bipartisan infrastructure bill, that we get it 100% funded. And I know we're going to be able to do that with the many of the community partners here on the ground in Detroit and throughout the state that want to see this fully funded. Thank you so much. It has been truly an honor. Pastor Pam, everyone, is truly an honor to fight for you all on your behalf. And we have an amazing team here that we work, and you all come first in our mind, and we work through all the challenges, but I just want you to know you are literally at the forefront of every decision I make. So thank you all so much. And again, I'm so incredibly proud, and know that Administrator Reagan, I'm inviting you now. It will be back to our district to talk about lead and talk about air quality and so much more. But again, I can't thank you enough for your leadership, and I really do look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Congressmember Tlaib. Our next speaker is representing the state of Michigan, and she is the director of EGLE. environmental, Great Lakes, and energy. We know her as our regulator in the water industry, but she's more than just the regulator. Her team, they're partners with DWSD as well as the Great Lakes Water Authority, so we appreciate what she does. I bring to the podium now Liesl Clark.
Great. Thank you, Gary. Thank you also, Pastor Pam. Appreciate your hospitality. I'm glad to be in the Congresswoman's district and, of course, in the beautiful city of Detroit, Mr. Mayor. And we're so thrilled to welcome Administrator Regan to Michigan. So happy to have you on a return visit. This, of course, isn't his first visit. So I'm Liesl Clark. I'm the director of Michigan's Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. And I'll be brief. I want to put an underscore on what you've heard from the previous speakers, that in Michigan, Michiganders care passionately about our water. We know that our water is precious and our water is powerful. We think about it being precious, obviously, in direct human health and the concerns that we have about our drinking water. Also in the ways that we use it recreationally, in the ways that we're out and about, in the ways that it's all around us. As Michiganders, we care a lot about our water. We also know it's precious when we look at our neighbors around us and see the challenges that other states across the country are having with drought, are having with wildfire, and we know how lucky we are to sit in the beautiful middle of our Great Lakes Basin. That we also know that water is powerful. We saw that certainly with the rain events that led up to some of the conversations here today. We've been seeing it across Michigan for the last few years. We've been seeing it in our high water events, and in the fact that climate is sending rain to us faster and with more power and great regularity, and we've got to prepare for it. It's so much more important for us to be doing this work on the front end so that we can help people instead of having to deal with it as emergency and cleanup on the back end. It's changing because our climate is changing, and the power of the water really impacts us, particularly when we look at the high water levels that we've struggled with over the last few years. So this is an incredible investment. This program specifically in working on basement backups really helps people. We're excited also at the state level. Governor Whitmer's been advocating strongly with the legislator for additional investment in water infrastructure. We know in Michigan that we've got undersized water infrastructure that has had decades of disinvestment. We need to put dollars into it. We just had a water main break a few months ago down in southwest Michigan. It was a 100-year-old water main. They were receiving water, drinking water through a 100-year-old water main. You would know if you were driving on a 100-year-old road, and how would we feel about that? We have a lot of work to do. You see partners in front of you that really care about making a difference for people and making sure that these programs are effective. And I'm excited to be able to connect that into the Governor Whitmer's administration. And we're looking forward to even going further upon additional appropriation with our friends at the legislature. So thanks for the opportunity. I'm glad to see this work firsthand and to stand here with colleagues that really care about making a difference.
Thank you, Director Clark. Our next speaker, I pretty much knew him before he was even a twinkle in his parents' eye. He's Fred Durhal III. I make the assumption that his dad is Fred Durhal II, and he and I went to high school together at Northwestern High School. Spent many a day at the Fisher YMCA talking about our futures, and I think back then he even had ideas that he wanted to be mayor and wanted to follow in Coleman Young's footsteps. So I know that he spent a lot of time as a state representative, and then his son followed in those footsteps, and we're happy to have him back now in Detroit as a city council person. So I bring you Fred Durhal III.
Good morning. Somehow I knew that was coming. Thank you, Director Brown and everyone here. This is District 7. You are in the heart of District 7, so welcome to everyone that is here today. Pastor Dixon, thank you for opening your doors as always. This is not just a sanctuary for today, but a sanctuary for this community as you have served it very well. So thank you so much. Thank you, Administrator Reagan, for being here, Congresswoman Tlaib, Mr. Mayor. And our comments will be very brief but very strong. As I canvassed this neighborhood prior to coming back, as Gary articulated, it was during a lot of the storms. I remember walking to a lot of the doors, and I didn't have to ask what folks wanted us to fix because they would take me down in their basements right here in the aviation subdivision. And so today I'm excited to hear of a program like this because it will affect so many lives, particularly in this community, but across the entire city. Obviously, President Joe Biden and Congress have provided Detroit communities across the country a unique opportunity to address long-standing gaps in services through the American Rescue Plan Act. And several of our District 7 neighborhoods have experienced this flooding, as I told you, throughout this entire summer. And we've seen it firsthand. We've seen spring and summer, and we're reminded of the reality of climate change, which is a real thing here in the state of Michigan, across our country. And Ms. Owens, the Dickersons, they can tell you firsthand how it has affected them. We were just there this morning looking at their basements, looking at boxed up trophies and memories that some of our residents have lost that they'll never be able to get back, old family pictures. And those are things that this community, very strong sense of community, particularly here in aviation, they hold on to dearly. Last June's storm devastated several thousand families here in Warrendale and all parts of District 7. And it shows the need for serious investment in infrastructure, not only as preventative measures for future storms, but to ensure that families across the city won't be devastated year after year with the flooding. So over the last 10 years, we've seen basement backups, particularly here in this community and Warrendale during major rain events due to the antiquated sewer systems that were designed for the 20th century and not for our current climate reality. And this issue is not new, let me tell you. But thankfully, we're starting to see programs in progress and dollars that are dedicated to long-term solutions. So now, thanks to ARPA funds and some of the leadership from our mayor, the Basement Backup Protection Program will employ many Detroit-based contractors and help fix flooding issues in Detroit homes. This is the first major step to helping address this historic backup in these neighborhoods. We need to convert our sewage systems into a more climate resilient infrastructure. And we thank the progress that you've made from Congress for passing ARPA. And we understand this transformational investment in America's future will allow us to be innovative and implement impactful programs to assist our residents and prepare the future of our city. So I'm very happy again to be here today, move these programs forward. I can tell you we still get a lot of calls. It's the winter time, and as Congressmember Tlaib articulated, there were folks, who had so much flooding that it became frozen in their basements. But this will help us start to get back to where we need to be. And I do have a final note. I want to urge Congress to help build back better. And push it. I know you are, but for those who are out there, we are urging you. Communities like District 7 need that here to help our families remain safe, remain secure, and stable. So thank you very much for having me today. We're continuing to fight for you, District 7, working with the Mayor's Office and Director Brown as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Durhal, and we just have a couple more speakers, but I just want to emphasize that we have bid documents sitting on my desk. They're ready to go out right now. We've been replacing lead service lines for several years now, and I see Mr. Washington over there smiling because he's the plumber that's waiting to see those bids go out. And so we know that the money is coming, but then you're going to need contractor capacity. So we take the bill back, we take the ARPA dollars that we're using for the to protect basements program, and we build the capacity by making sure that Detroit-based plumbers are able to get this work so that they can build the capacity, hire more people, get more equipment. And so when we get the Build Back Better dollars to do the lead service lines, we'll have the capacity to do that. So with that said, I'm going to bring up Mr. Washington, who, when I called him and asked him to do this, where's Ms. Owens? Here's what he told me. He said, because I told him, my reputation's on the line here. This program's going to work. And he assured me that it would. He said when he leaves Mrs. Owens' house, the only way water will ever get back in that basement is if it comes through the front door. So we're gonna hold him to that. We're gonna hold you to that.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank our Mayor Duggan, for the great job and leadership he's providing, as well as Director Brown, for the leadership that he's been providing with our DWSD, as well as this great delegation behind me who has supported the whole process along the way. And I'd like to reach out to the pastor of this great church. Again, my name is Isaac Washington. I'm president and owner of Ben Washington & Sons Plumbing and Heating. My dad started this company in 1958. And so we are a historical black plumbing company in this city. We're Detroit-based, Detroit headquarters, and we've been here. Some of the major projects, I call them the pearls of our city that we worked on and completed. The complete plumbing system is projects like the Charles Wright Museum, the Detroit Heart Hospital, as well as Little Caesars World Headquarters Building, and most recently, Detroit Pistons practice facility, along with Center for Athletic Medicine with the Henry Ford Health System. But in addition to that, over the past 60-plus years, we've been privileged to serve many of Detroit residents, providing critical needs to their homes. Whenever they call, we try to show up and handle the business. And so we have a relationship with the citizens. So I'm truly honored that the city reps reached out to Ben Washington & Sons and asked us to bid on this project, because it certainly is a problem. You heard over and over again the results of the storms of 2021. Those images are vivid, and it hurts you to the core. Not only to see the stories on Detroit news channels, but those stories went global. And so we have a responsibility, and as I assured Director Brown, we can fix this problem. And I think what this whole press conference is about is let the citizens of Detroit know help is on the way. We can do this. And so we're just excited about the process. And I'll say it again. When we go out and evaluate a home and examine what the issues are and come back to the city of Detroit and share what our findings are, if we do what we recommend needs to be done, the only way water will come in is through a door or a window. The plumbing system will not be the problem. I promise you that. Thank you.
I think my job is safe, Ms. Washington. All right, so we're going to round it out with a resident that lives a stone's throw away from this beautiful church, Ms. Owens, a resident that would like to share with you her experience.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
First of all, I would like to thank our mayor, Mike Duggan, and everyone showing interest in protecting our neighborhood from flooding. Since living in the aviation sub as a homeowner for 6 years, I have experienced flooding after heavy rainfalls, and we have been on edge every time it rains here. This is the reason I have applied for the Basement Backup Protection Program, and I encourage all of my neighbors to do the same. During these heavy rainfalls, I have had to discard many personal items, furniture, and appliances on several occasions, as well as having my basement professionally cleaned over 5 times after the 2021 rainfalls. I have had claims denied for assistance, or the funds available were simply not enough to resolve my basement and restore and replace items lost. After flooding in my beloved aviation sub, it appears as a disaster zone with water on every street, sidewalk, and most importantly, our basements. So this is why I look forward to receiving funds from the Basement Backup Program, because this will help me, my neighbors, and the city as a whole to recover and stay protected. So again, I would like to thank my mayor, Mike Duggan, the city council, the White House, and lastly but not least, Mona, Ray, Sabrina, and our Esper Block Hub family. God bless, and thank you all.
Thank you so much. I don't know if Alicia Bell was able to get here, but I wanted to recognize her. She's a county commissioner. I see the Washingtons that showed up. They were gracious enough to open up their house. We do appreciate that. And I'll take questions until somebody from staff tells me that I have to stop. And the Dickersons, I'm sorry, the Dickersons are here too. Yes.
Of the $213 million coming to Michigan, how much is coming to Detroit, and are those funds only going to be used for the basement backup protection program?
I think that's probably me, Gary.
Okay.
So the $213 million that's coming from our friends in the federal sphere go to the safe drinking water, the revolving fund program. So there's a drinking water revolving loan fund and a clean water revolving loan fund. They're not yet allocated, but we have already received over $1 billion worth of applications for them. So you'll be hearing more from EGLE and from the state of Michigan about opportunities to apply for those. So the opportunity is still there. Hasn't been allocated yet. So we've received some proposals, but we're still structuring the program.
And it's also for drinking water, but why the big emphasis on flood protection? I understand why. It's just a little more on why flood protection.
Yeah, that's a great question. And for decades, there has been a heavy emphasis on making sure that the source water, the Great Lakes, are clean. We've spent billions of dollars on that, and it was absolutely necessary. And it's still going on today. I think the president allocated another $1 billion to the state of Michigan to deal with the Great Lakes, which will include the Detroit River and Rouge River. But there's been a disinvestment in infrastructure, and that's a public health and safety issue when our residents are having this type of flood and damage to their homes. And so now we're going to shift or move dollars or make the public health and safety issues as much of a priority as we've made with regards to making sure that the source of our water is pristine. One more? Yes.
I actually have a few questions. I'm curious to know how many people have applied to this program so far, and will it be expanded to other neighborhoods?
1,050. And my experience with politicians is if we make this program successful, everybody wants to be a part of success, and they'll find some additional money to expand it.
And then my other question was, I noticed that there's installation of backwater valves. Can someone talk about the effectiveness of that, and where is it pushing overflow?
Yeah, that's a great question. There will be a trade-off in some neighborhoods. When that flow is not being stored in the basement, it's going to be on the outside, and it's going to you're going to have some additional flow temporarily on the streets. And so we think that that's a good trade-off because, again, once you get sewage into basements, it becomes a public health and safety issue. If you can keep it out of the basement, you've alleviated that problem. So that's it. No, it should not be going into someone else's home.
How does this help those of us who have spent the money
Yeah.
to have our basements redone?
Yeah,
It's already
Yes, and
without having mitigated the water
Uh,
problem. So I've already spent all the money I've got, so what do I do now?
yeah, we're certainly looking at other programs. This is not going to be the only program that gets rolled out. There'll be other programs that the Detroit City Council and others will be looking at in terms of moving dollars into the home repair programs to be able to help residents with that issue. But right now, there's no reimbursement program in place for the sump pumps or the backwater valves.
I'd love to talk to you afterwards to make sure that you applied for FEMA and that was exhausted. I know, but I've been appealing a bunch of them, so let's talk.
Okay. Thank you very much.